working on your tension is kind of a common thing we all kind of probably have issues with, and it's a question I get asked a lot because people feel that my tension is usually pretty good in my projects, and they kind of want to know, well, how do you get that tension that way? So I started to try to think of some techniques that I probably do that probably I was aiding in my tension being relatively decent. Now, the first thing I would say is your starting process. When you start your process and you have your skein of yarn, let me just move this here. If you have your skein of yarn or your ball of yarn, you want to make sure it's loose. You want to make sure it's coming off the yarn or the skein nice and loose. You don't want to have to tug on it too much to get you the yarn you need, which means if you're wrapping like this, you don't want to have to pull to get the yarn that you want. You want to make sure your working yarn is very loose to hang on to. Step 2 would probably be how you hold the yarn. Keep an eye on how you hold it. It may be different for everyone, but I tend to hold it where you got your 2 fingers and then you kind of have it guiding through here. I'm not gripping it. I'm not gripping it up here. I'm not gripping it around. I'm letting it kind of freely go through my fingers. And as you can see, even here, I'm not pressing hard. I'm just letting it guide through the fingers very gently. You want it to kind of slip through your fingers. You don't want to feel like you're tugging at it or anything like that to get it to do what you want to do. The other tip I think I have is I caught myself doing, I believe, like a 1-2 kind of count when I'm wrapping. So I'm holding it the way I just told you, loosely in my hands, loosely here, and I go behind the peg and I say 1, I come in and then I bring it around and say 2. So it's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And it gets you a nice rhythm, and I believe that rhythm is what helps me kind of keep my tension pretty good. So that's one tip I could give you, is definitely see if you can do some sort of count and see if that count will help you with your tension. So again, saying 1, 2 as you do it in your head probably, or out loud if there's nobody around, might help you get the tension that you want in your project. So again, that's about all I can say when it comes to tension, is keep an eye on how you're holding it in your hand, making sure that the working yarn is loose coming off the skein so that you're not tugging on it as you're trying to wrap, and simply just take your time. Don't rush the process. I've been knitting for 3 years so far, so this is just kind of what I've learned. Now if you're doing the purl, is kind of hard to tell you. If you're doing a flat knit, again, we don't want to tug this too tight. Like, see, if I pull this across, that is going to make this working yarn right here tight after I knit it over. Give it some ease. Don't pull it too tight. If you need to, just lay it in front of a few pegs gently as you can, and then knit over if you're going to do the flat knit. And I apologize for the blurriness of the camera. It's just not cooperating today. But again, lay it nice and easy over the pegs. Don't tug at it. If you tug at it, it's going to make it tight, obviously. Another thing you can do when you're wrapping, like I said, you do your 1, 2, is check the back of your loom. Like, check the space, the loom in between. Check this part right here. If the working yarn back here from one peg to the other has some give, you should be fine. If you try to touch it, like if you try to go like this and it doesn't give you a lot of give, then chances are you're wrapping too tightly. Because if you wrap it too tightly, let me just wrap a couple, this is tight net wrapping. If you wrap a couple tightly, okay, what you're going to see is this isn't going to give you a lot of give. If you push on where they connect, these aren't going to give a lot in the project. You want to loosen them. And sometimes that could be as simple as loosening your working yarn and say, oh look, now I've got a little bit of wiggle room in between. So that's another way you can check and see if your tension is too tight. So I hope these tips help. Again, just keep an eye on how you're holding the yarn. Make sure it's coming off the skein nice and beautifully so that it's not a lot of tugging you have to do, and just try to have fun with it.